for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone and welcome. This is my surprise mini video update for the end of the eclipse season. Well, the eclipse season is not really over because it continues to last and it's undulating waves of ever unfolding new potentials. And I want to talk about what this eclipse for me personally, what it brought forth, what it ended, what it culminated in. I want to talk about the cosmic Christ and give you a little bit of the update on the note of the course I'm creating at this time. Well, the course was already created through me. I just need to record it and it will be available on my Serapina Light webpage as I post this video. The link will be shared down below so you can always get informed. But I want to talk about the importance of this time because, I did a pre-eclipse video and then I went on a short retreat. For me, any retreat I've had so far in my life hasn't really been a retreat. When people go for vacations or holidays, they put their feet up and, I'm always working. So during this eclipse, I felt this door shutting and it felt really strange for me. And I was asking what this is about because I've never felt it so strongly. And first I asked, okay, is it maybe my it's like this negative energy, negative cycle that sometimes we can experience because we feel unworthy or needed. And I don't have those issues. I always feel valuable. I always know I bring tremendous gifts to the planet. And I'm always activated to plant new seeds. And as a creation pillar, my life is lived with huge intensity that I cannot describe. So the tremendous amount of light force that I channel through my body or is being channeled through me is something so invigorating, but sometimes also devastating for the body. So I've recently learned that my soul kind of uses these cycles to sort of like when I activate a lot of these energy waves that are moving electrically through my body and they're charging the whole nervous system, which we're all kind of sensitive to, especially during the eclipse time period and this interval of energy potential. But, because I'm experiencing so much with great intensity and with such speed of invocation in the body, sometimes my soul will have to put a lid on my system and on my Kundalini flow, which is always very natural. It just keeps on flowing. But sometimes it's too much for the body. And so my soul will sort of put a lid on, and at those times I don't feel as connected. I don't feel as myself, as the creation pillar and an elven presence being, because my primary mission has always been with nature. And I've just channeled, when I was during this retreat, I've channeled this profound information about the new cycles of creation, how the Elohim divide themselves again and their beings and their presence, which will be also in the Cosmic Christ course that I'm creating now at this time. And they were showing me these divisions and why this is so, and how during these shifts the elementals, the structure of everything that holds density together, that holds life and form, how when it's changing it needs new directive. And so they were showing me this as my mission, as the new illumined seed template was being written in the core of the planet. And I don't know if you've been with me far enough or long enough, but recently the development has been that the seed has been planted, that the illumined template has been activated and written into the template of the core creation pillar of Earth. And for me, that was quite a surprise, because you know how it is when you're working on something for a long time, you just get used to work. You get used to always working, always just doing this constantly on a day-to-day basis, showing up every day. Okay, what's next? And my life has been like this. So even when I go to retreats and holidays, they're not really holidays. They're always working. Holidays when I just change the scenery a bit, or I am somehow called to a new place where something needs to be activated for a certain purpose. Or sometimes, which is very rare, but we had terrible weather here, so I was guided to go somewhere else for a few days. Because, we have profoundly long winters here in the Alps. And when it's the summer season, I just have to replenish the nature. I have to be outdoors all the time. So sometimes when I see people saying, oh, you need a minimum of 1 hour in nature, and I need 1 hour of walking outside. I get like, what? 1 hour? I'd die if I spent only 1 hour a day outside and the rest of it indoors. Because it's not me. It's not what creation pillars were designed for. It's not what the elven presence, how it works, how it functions. So imagine how difficult it is for me during winter times and these long winter seasons here. So during the winter seasons, as you know, I like to work a lot. And sometimes this will build a tremendous pressure on my body. And at those times, I've been noticing my cycles. I lose a lot of weight. So when these strong activation points come, it's very sometimes difficult or challenging for the physical body and the way these new energies come. So just prior to going to this retreat, a working holiday, it's like I started to work with the energy of the lightnings and consciously putting them or inviting their essence, this electric charge into my body, and this was very intense. So when I actually got there, I got to the sea, which I haven't been to, I think, over 2 years now, and it was like, wow, the deep longing, the calling I felt. I just simply had to go. And as you know, I still don't have a car, so we went with the bus. It's pretty challenging. With the whole system, you have to push through a lot of barriers and the density of the system. But, because here we don't have good connections, it is what it is. So in a nutshell, what was occurring the first 3 to 4 days when I got there, we had lightnings and powerful storms every day. And I was so scared. One level of me was so scared. The other one was like, I need to sit outside and just watch them and inhale them and put them in the body. And they were teaching me how to do that. And after first 4 days of constantly dancing and activating and being like this hyper buzzing self, which for me is very natural, but for my body, it's sometimes too much. It's like putting this hyper light being child of infinite potential into this container. And for me, when the soul has to put the lid on it, it feels very depriving, and I don't feel as good as I do when I'm on. When this off button is pushed, it's like when it's pressed, it feels like I can't connect the way, I usually do. And it's this natural joy, it's natural sense of purity, because I do embody purity at its utmost desired level at this time. And my guides are always telling me it's difficult sometimes to navigate you and give you directions, because it's new for us as well on this planet, because such purity hasn't been embodied yet. And these are different times than they were at the times when we had the zero timeline and the Jeshua embodiment. It was different. The matrix wasn't as dense and as contracted, and as the system wasn't as controlling as it is now. So as you know, this net continues to build and build upon. So when the eclipses come and the energy is like, it's breaking through that. And along that, when we go through that energy and we travel through it, those of us who have mission to do so, we will feel how the system is putting everything back. It's like all coming back at us. And so much was put in front of my face, so much deprivation, so much vile treatment of Mother Earth, of nature. And when I've witnessed it here, because I told you before, what it was here 6 years ago and what's happening now, it's not the same. It's terrible, because they're working construction every week. They close up one work and say, wow, finally it's over. Then the next week something else, and it's constant. And the system of this density that's so toxic, those of us who are so connected to nature, and we have the deepest love for it, we feel that's unnatural. We feel that's not how life is supposed to be oriented, and it's all the pressures and the impulses of the net, and how people are still being strongly impulsed by it. So when you walk around the planet with fully open and activated consciousness, and you're looking around and people are there, and you're not either new agey, which is falsely awake, or just totally asleep, which is just different versions of sleep. But when you're truly conscious and fully awake, you will see everything, not just see it and witness it, you will feel it in your body. So in my path, they're always telling me, and I've shared this with you before, I go to the abyss of those feelings, and then I have to resurge back up, and I have to pull all that back upward so that it doesn't kind of like flood over me, so that I don't, get drowned in these feelings. But during this eclipse time, and the first eclipse, which was a solar one in Cancer, which is so beautiful, the lunar one was more challenging, because it actually closed the lid. It wasn't just my soul putting a lid on my energy so the body could not be in harm, because I already came home with a broken back. It was that intense, with the nervous system. And so I felt it in the outside world, because I remember the last day we were trying to get home and the bus connection is just wasn't there, and we had to wait the whole day. We're asking people for help, or to take us, or just things like that. The system is so dense that even this bus driver who brought the kids there, they had this retreat, and he went back alone. He had this stamped paper which declared he's coming back alone, and he was so sorry because the people can't literally do anything because the system is that oppressive. And it's all just forms and forms and forms of stuff and shit. And that's why, as you know, I don't like to go anywhere, travel too much, because you literally always have to go through the system. If you don't have a sort of like arrangement, that's maybe some people have already developed, but I wasn't working on that in this lifetime. But it's really difficult because you will see the oppression on every level, on every step. And it's just tremendously painful because you get to witness what's all being done to the planet, to nature, to all those things. And it's really painful for me. So one thing, as what I call the more vertical masters have been saying, you have to stay neutrally benevolent. It doesn't concern you, none of your business. You can always be in this meditative state. Whatever is happening on the outside, that's just one fact. But I know so much, so deeply, because I have this connection with the self that only I know about, that's real. And it's tangible to me. And it's this elven presence, which is a complete unification with life and planetary life force, which I have managed to achieve this year. This year I fully, arranged my embodiment so that the personal tantric mastery aligns now with the earth mastery and with the cosmic tantric energy running and interconnectivity, which will all be in my Cosmic Christ course as well. All this learning that my illumined team has been pushing me through, and I've been, just plunging through all this time. So it is really intense, when you get to witness that, and that your mission is not just to be an observer of life and spectator, but you're literally the one whose mission is to unify with planetary life force, plant in your lumen seed template, the design, which actually is for the future. It's not even for now. That's the funny thing. So you're living in this future timeline, being anchored through in the now, because the body only exists in the now. As you know, that's why the body is more intelligent than the mind, which keeps on jumping frameworks, and the mind was a huge inception by those who came to earth and planted the seed of the net and all of the system to serve them and their causes. So they've also been developing on their own during their systems, but on earth they've left imprints on those who've been most ego-driven and most fallen energies and most forgetting our natural source and origin of life. So when your mission is to fully unify with the planetary life force and to embody the cosmic Christ, which my team has now told me I do, they've said that it's vice versa than what most people think. Most people think the more you get enlightened, the less you're concerned with everything. The more you're withdrawn, you're just in the world, but not really of it. Well, that's partially true. But in terms of connecting the Galactic Core and the Earth Core, and you being as the vessel in between, you are the powerful pillar that transduces the energies in between, like literally a lightning rod. That's why my last initiation and embodiment of this was with the lightnings. That's what I needed to master, to fully own the lightning energy. Because that's what it's coming in the body, and it's constantly transducing powerful currents that are consciously and continuously sustaining us in our life forms. And then these move into the elemental nature of everything. So actually, when you get into the embodiment and the embodied form of Christ, actually the more your spirit gets into the body, the more difficult it is for you. So for me, I've been noticing my sensitivity increasing, and it's been amplifying and multiplying, and it's been harder and harder for me to exist in this density. So when I came home, I felt this sense of, wow, this devastation and a door closing. And literally it felt like it all was, this button was pushed, this standby mode, and nothing was moving. And then I asked, what is this about? Is this a part of feeling this sadness? And then the answer was yes, partially, but there's more. So I communed with Spirit the next day. Of course, I had to go to my Twin Lakes portal, which is my mission station. I call it my spaceship, because I can literally see a powerful golden white light spiral that moves, and it moves up through the lake. And in one of the meditations, I remember, actually it was my mother. She saw a vision of these devas, the Devi kingdom there, and it's almost like the water nymphs they were showing how they're encircling energy when I'm there and how much fun they're having when I'm there, but that they're actually also saying goodbye because I'm in a way saying goodbye to that place. I'm going to get a new mission place, but it will be different than what it was now. So let me get back to that. So when I came there and I communed with spirit, and then the next day I communed more, they actually had a very interesting response for me. So they told me that the feeling of this disconnectedness, like, what am I even still doing here? Because my impact is, first of all, I'm not very popular, as you know, because people are not interested to go that deep. Second of all, I have very few people who actually understand these things, or are able to integrate them, or are even interested in integrating them. And I have a very small group on Patreon who are sort of committed. I don't know about all of them, but there are a few people who are willing to do, in this lifetime, this cosmic Christ embodiment. And I've received powerful, powerful information what this is about in terms of creation cycles, the feminine and the masculine Christ as one, the unification, becoming the cosmic Christ, all that's in it, will be in it. So when I went into that and I was reading the energy, they told me that my feeling was just natural. Because when I asked, well, am I still even needed on the planet, right? Because I gave you a few points. Well, the third one would be, I don't really physically connect to this planet. That would be the third point, which I forgot to add. Because, I can barely manage to sustain myself. I don't really particularly like the way this planet is in terms of the nature of purity and sensitivity that I hold. Even if I go to a spiritual retreat place, for me it's still dense. There's not any place on the planet right now that wouldn't be either a representation of the false, illusory heaven, right? It's all beautiful on the outside, but the energy, still matrix. Or it's physically very disrupted and distorted, and a lot of toxicity in old energy systems, the way energy is being translated, and almost like packaged in the planet. So almost like, in a meat house, it's toxic the way things are handled. Imagine the energy, not just like physical essence, what we call it's meat packaging, right? But in actuality, the energy, the way energy is being managed and maintained on this planet, it's very toxic. So when you get to see that, an awful presence, I meant all full presence, not awful. So just to not make any, false connotations here. But people don't see that. And there's either people who are blindfolded by the false light, which I've been talking about a lot and tremendously with great passion and zest for life. And then there's people who are fully asleep. And I read in one of the books from Barbara Hand-Clow, which was a beautiful explanation, where they said, why most people who have a soul wound of knowing how much we've done harm to the planet, and still, because of that wound, because it's too painful and they don't want to meet it, they rather convince themselves, the planet's already ruined. Because when I talk to a few people, they always say, so what if we devastate ourselves? So what if we stop existing as a human race? No one actually cares that deeply. But deep within the soul, beings do care. But the way energy is being recycled and maintained on the planet and the status quo and the system is like a very tiny portion of that seed is actually crystallized, is able to crystallize here. That's why so few people actually have an awareness of what's happening. So when you get to live with that energy and that presence, you get to feel always this sense of aloneness, right? It's not just this typical, what people call light worker, which is a word, as you know, I don't like to use because I'm an embodier of the cosmic Christ and a tantrika being, reinforcement and reinstatement of the purity of the immaculate design through which life force actually moves in the infinite flow of spirit in complete freedom and liberation. And that's what I do. That's my main purpose. So when I felt the sense of, wow, I don't even need to be here. What is this feeling? What's it about? Spirit actually showed me that this is the right feeling, because the feeling that always had this drive to do, there's more to do, mission, work, sort of like waned, and it like the door of the eclipse for me felt like shut. And it's interesting because I do have Capricorn in the first and second house. My moon is in Capricorn in first house, so it did influence my feelings and how I, through my inner gift of sensitivity, can read what's happening, deep inner knowing. And Capricorn does relate also to structures and can relate to wisdom at a higher level, this great ancestral wisdom. So when I entered this energy, I was shown that I'm no longer needed on the planet the way I was before. And I was like, ooh, at first I was a bit shocked because I literally asked, can I choose to leave? And the answer was yes, absolutely. It didn't make sense. And then they told me I've actually finished my work. And first it didn't make any sense because why would one finish their work so young? What? People would always think that, right? People say, how would someone at the age of, I'm going to be 36 this September, how would someone at this age finish something? But what they've shared with me is that the mission of the creation pillar is not as most people, because they start their awakening, and that like later in life. They've told me that they've started the mission through me when I was already in the womb. So from age 0 to the approaching 36, which is interesting. They show me the sacred geometry about it, the numerology that's behind it, because 36 is actually, as you know, it is 9, right? 9999. But when you add 36 two times together, you get 72. And those of you who know creation, who understand a bit about these numerological systems and what these things mean in terms of the pillars, it's a very important number. And it's also half of number 144, which is super important. So they were showing me that this is actually a lock-in, it's like anchoring process for me. But I've been doing the work since 0 to 36 years of age. And now this lid wasn't just a temporary lid that I felt when my Kundalini had to be a little shut down because it was starting to disrupt my natural body's abilities to translate energies. But it's not just 0 to 9, like a 9-year cycle that I'm now finishing, numerologically speaking, but I'm also culminating in a 36 cycle of years. Imagine, you have the wheel spinning, so you have a tinier wheel, spinning around, it's a greater wheel going around, and they're both spinning, which I can show, of course, with my hands, and they're spinning around a larger wheel, and as you know, in a spiral conjunction relates to solar systems, right? Spinning around greater solar suns, and then the grand central sun, and then around the galactic center. And there's certain timelines of how much the spin, the era, there's cycles hidden within that. So they were showing me that this for me was like a whole era. It's not about, oh, you're that age, so let me make an assumption of where you should be right now in your life. It has nothing to do with that. So a mission of a creation pillar, it starts from day 0, from, you're not aware of it, but it starts energetically. It's already pumping. It's being pumped into you. So they've told me that I've channeled so much life force energy that no being has done before for what was required at this time, and that's why I was chosen. So for a while now, when I went through my most difficult moments, which was definitely last year towards the end and towards the spring of this year, all the way to the spring, still happening because it's still undulating, we're still needing to let go of all there was. It's still in the memory. But they were showing me that this completion, it's like it pulled everything with it. It pulled everything together. And they said that no being was able to do that. And when I had most difficult moments, like I said, they kept telling me that they believe firmly that I will be the one to do it. And I was crying. I remember when my giver of life was activated, and I don't know if I've shared this with you. I think I did it with my Patreon group. But I literally was crying on the floor saying, I will not do it. It's not me. It's not me. And I was like, crying. And I heard a voice when I was lying on the floor flat telling me, then who else if not you? Because it's my mission, right? It was my mission, and only I knew it. And people can project and assume and speculate, but that has nothing to do, right? And for me, it hasn't been about fellow beings. It was more about directing the elemental energies through the powerful spirit life force that was channeled, because they needed a new directive because of the shift of the earth into her new trajectory, into her own journey into illumined union. And that's what we do. We come, we plant the seed, and then we leave. And we've done this before. So when I asked, can I leave? They said yes. But I asked, will I choose to leave? And the answer in my heart was no. And when I asked, well, then what am I supposed to do now? Because I literally felt everything dying for about a few months now, actually since the beginning of this year. It didn't feel as invigorating what I do. I didn't feel like that's something I'll continue to do. as you've seen, there's less and less videos on YouTube. It's how it was. So they were telling me that I literally, if I do nothing from this day forward, when I'm asking this question, I've already done everything. And everything I do so far as of now is a bonus. And when I choose to stay on the planet now, they said, it is for you. Because so far you were giving. You were on a mission. You were constantly, right? Like a spinning spiral that needs to spin out her cycle before, it's just like catching time, although there's a timeless nature. But in terms of Earth and our trajectory and our positions and the cycles that needed to unfold, there was a sort of time juncture that I was needing to catch. And today, when I meditated in one of the other sacred spots I have here in the mountain gorge, the words came, you've outdone yourself again. They say you always give a bonus, you always surplus yourself and to all because of the nature of my being. And that's when I said, and that's why we chose you. And now you get to see that that's why you were chosen for this. And you chose yourself in a way because it is all one. So the life force of spirit is infinitely intelligent. When we in the human mind speculate and think we're not ready, we can do something, or we project what it needs to be done. Spirit, when it's purely coming through us intact, which is just pure raw life force, which is that direct spiral spinning coming from the Galactic Core. And that has a divine intelligence that we can only imagine. But when we embody this beautiful purity, it will become more and more obvious to us. And for me, I felt so much suppression, restriction during the past year that I felt at times almost unbearable to live here on the planet. And I don't usually share these things because I don't want to go into negative point. And it's nothing about negative, they said. This is just life. And the reason why it's so painful for me, they said, because you go so deep. And for most people, it's too painful to feel. But you get to feel it because you don't, cry and say, oh, is this too much? They said no assignment is less than for you. You know what I did when I went to the ocean? Amazing. Besides the lightnings, one day I witnessed, because the lightnings tore down one tree. Tree obviously wanted to go. There was this huge pine tree. I've witnessed the departure of a tree. There was this huge giant being. And I was a part of the process, and I can't even describe it. I'll share it more in my Patreon group. But this feeling, this sensation of a tree leaving, and all the beings, other trees, fellow trees, were in a circle. They were literally supporting it and saying goodbye. And I was holding the energy because I was asking, why now? And it was right behind the house we were in, the bungalow. And I said, why this one? Why this one? It's like all of the trees. They said, because it waited for you, because it was a huge being and it needed the presence of a creation pillar so it could leave. Because when the tree left, I have to tell you this, it released everything, all of its memories, all of its experiences. It's just the atmosphere. But to fellow beings, it dispersed itself. It's like, a star going supernova. It disperses aspects of itself. In the process, formulating new life, impregnating new life, right? So as the tree was leaving and they were chopping it down the next day, they were tearing it down limb by limb because it was that huge. I went a little away, I went in my hammock, and right when they began, this tremendous wind started coming. It was so huge that I thought I'm going to be blown away, and all I could do was channel this light activation with the tree beings holding the space. We were saying goodbye, and it's like sending the tree to the right trajectory to find its own star space. And trees are beings, they're more ancient than humans in a way. So when you get to witness that, I witnessed tree falling, they're cutting them here like crazy, right? All the time. But this was a special occasion and a special opportunity because, again, the tree chose to go with the storm. And when great beings are released, when they release their essence into the sphere of existence, they always cause ripples. Sometimes great storms, devastations, like it was talked about in the Jeshua example, how there was a raging storm going on for 3 days or more. I don't know. I wasn't there, probably physically. But what I was saying, that was one thing. And I did a lot of work there, connecting to the way I can direct the elementals. That was a new training I did. They were telling me this is what I'm going to continue doing now because of my love for this work with nature, being so in love with nature the way I am from a creation perspective. And like they said, no work being less than for me, because I discovered this line. There's this line. I was actually shown that it's a important energetic place, like a spot. Again, a new aspect of my mission was revealed, how I'm connecting these sacred spaces to a bigger pillar template so that there can be also returned in the greater vortex. It's a similar process that we're experiencing from the soul level going back to the oversoul consciousness. And it's happening as well with the trees, with other aspects, also with the sacred points. So geomantically speaking, right, these lines correspond to certain, also to star lines, but there was, when I discovered, it was right there, where we were. So it was interesting. It was our bungalow, the tree, and that lineage. It was, the line moved across it, and I said, wow, how is this amazing? Because there's these giant, they look like salt, but they're crystals, sea crystals. There's like a bed of them, and only there in that spot. And I found a few stones that then crumble off. There's very rare ones, but because I was constantly picking up trash there, the only one there, I actually got these gifts from the elementals and fairy beings. So I come there one day. I'm just pulled out of my hammock. I go there. I'm just drawn in the tremendous heat. And I go there, and I'm pulled, and I said, wow, this space needs to be cleansed. I see this huge plastic piece or something, and people come there to eat sandwiches and urinate and put, cigarette fags and all of that. It was so dirty, and I just felt this impulse that of all of this disgustingness, I have to create a cleansing space again, to consecrate it, to make it sacred again. So you see, that's kind of like where I'm coming from. That no job is too disgusting for me, even when people urinate there and stuff. I have the sea there, I can wash up, right? So I was picking up trash. I cleansed the space. I made this sacred mandala, and I found this triangle pillar stone, and I was just asking the elementals to constantly direct me to what else needs to be done and put there. And all of a sudden, I thought it was already over. I found like this big one, and I put it on the back of the circle, and that one represented the anchor point in which the sacred spot needed to, return to and gather. So later we did this beautiful activation with the spiral, and how this tinier spiral joins in with the greater spiral, because it's all part of this ascension process. So what we do as creation pillars, we align these miniature versions of these ley lines and grids, besides what we do with the holding space and energy. There's a lot what we do. But this is one of the things that they show me, and we help to connect that space so that all of these ley lines can geomantically return back to the immaculate design, which is the design held with impurity of the template of spirit, how it was all held together by the organic web of life, instead of the false net that is now artificially sustaining life, but it's done artificially. It's not natural. It is completely unnatural. So there's these two parallel worlds coexisting, and when you're in this one doing this work, you're so excited, and when you go into the density, you're like, you're dreading and you're treading, and it's difficult. Sometimes you just don't want to be there, but you are. So after that and all of that, when they told me I've outdone myself, because there are certain things that I wouldn't have to do, but I do them anyway. And that's that pure love and that devotion which I always had. And even when I think, why wouldn't I just leave? I know I can do that. I can consciously leave the body. I was shown in a dream that I can do that. And if I want to, I can choose it. But I just fully trust that until there's something, even when I'm no longer needed primarily because of the mission, assignment, and agreement I had, which I know fully completed, they said, but there's still something like a new agreement, like something new that's being formulated, a result of which was the primary mission being done. Now that created another spin-off. And now I'm catching this spin-off, and I'm going, what is that? And I'm like a child waiting to see what it is, knowing that I'll no longer be doing, and I don't even have any will to do that. The videos, all of that, it will all be gone. So when I come up here and speak, it's like one day we'll be like, watching an archive. It's like, wow, that's archive, that's old. Like these seashells I found at the ocean riverbed. It's not a riverbed. We have riverbeds here. What are they called? Like there's basins, I think. I'm so used to the river terminology. I'm sorry. But there's this spot. There are only these old seashells that all are covered with the limestone or something. I don't know. They're all archaic. And I found them, and on the last day when I was there, I created this circle of light, of completion, because, needed to go back home. But it was just so beautiful that these old ones, when I put them in the circle, I said, they're like me. They're so old, and yet they're new. Because that's how I feel. I feel brand new. And all of my life, I haven't lived in a learned way. People ask you, where did you learn that? People still ask me when I go somewhere they say, how do you know English so well? It's never been as learned as with other people or intellectually. It just comes channeled in the moment. And now it's more challenging for me to speak or find words in my native language if I translate directly, because I think and feel and everything in English, except when I speak star language. And sometimes it happens, which is what occurred with the lightning activation one night there at the sea. It was amazing, because I already forgot that I can do that. And when it came through, they actually told me that I spoke the ancient language of creation, that it's used to direct the elementals so they know where and how. The next day, the tree falls. Like, what? Why did I do that? And they said it's not to be seen in a bad way when the tree leaves naturally, as you well know. The problem with the world nowadays is when things are controlled, when people are thinking they're doing good, but they're actually doing more harm. With the tree bugs we have here, with the spruce trees, which are dying off tremendously, we only have like clear deforestation areas everywhere, because we had so much of the fir tree. Is it fir? Yes. And the problem is, because for every tree that was infected and had a bug and starts to die off in its life force, they will cut around the entire circle of other trees. So imagine, for one tree, the other 10 go, just to prevent the disaster. So who thinks like that? Ego, right? Ego always wants to prevent. And what it happens, like you have, let's say, 3 trees like that. Instead of 3 trees, you have 30 approximately that have to leave because humans choose. Because we don't let nature have its course, and that's very painful for me to see and witness that. And that there's people who have no knowledge about these things at all, because they're not connected with anything. So I met this person who actually told me that. It was a funny fact. He was a masseuse there by the beach, and he said one of the clients was actually a Slovene person who works at some sort of governmental system, actually with this issue with the trees. And it was funny, that information came to me, because I work with the creation level. And we were talking, and he said that the person said, oh, I don't even know how to move on, because there's literally 3 people that get to decide about all of that. 3 people, imagine that. 3 people deciding about the fate of the entire forestry or whatever. Hello? How bizarre is that? How tremendously wrong. So they said they have no knowledge. The man literally had a lot of knowledge about trees, and they were sharing some visions and so with them. And that person knew nothing. They didn't know any tree species. They said, we have a problem now because we don't know what to plant next. What will grow, what will be sustained, it's just a cycle of life. The mind will not figure this out, because people are disconnected. They're tapped into the false grid and the net. They're held by it, like really tightly, because you see people there. I see some people, they have different levels of energy participation on the planet, and some people which you see, they're literally like zombies. There's like 0 life force in them, and they're still walking. And I'm looking at them like, wow, it's an interesting experiment to have like practically 0 life force in you, and still you're animating your body. So it's interesting in a way for me to observe that. So in the next coming months and initiatives of the new, when I crossed that 36 threshold, they were telling me 36 one way, then 36 years the other way. So maybe the life will be like totally returned. They said you were only giving, now you will start to receive. I don't know, let's hope it's true, because if I get to stay here, I don't get to stay here to be in poor conditions like I was now. And one thing is to do that, to master yourself, and to embody this level in the cosmic Christ, but then it has no more meaning. It's just devastating. It's just, you can go elsewhere where you're more needed and required and supported, because that's what we do. We're always in a mission. So, yeah. Like I said, this eclipse, going back to the eclipse, was, for me, it felt like a lid being pressed. And if that, in a way, played out for you in your own life, at your own level, Don't feel regret or there's something wrong. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to record this video, because people always tend to connotate these things with, oh, this is negative, don't think that way, don't feel that way. No, feel. Because when you actually get to experience the feeling and you allow yourself to feel, you will feel what is behind the feeling when you get to fully experience it. You won't just brush it off and say, oh, that's always something you've learned in a book or someone says, or it's like a stereotype, or, just the standard result or, answer. It's not like that. We can't get answers by putting stamps, right? We can't stamp them. It doesn't work that way. So, either way, think about what this either opened up for you during the solar eclipse, what it closed off with this lunar one. For me, it feels like the next one, which will be in Leo, I think the new moon will start already to have that little bit of the what's coming next. So stay open, stay alert. I want to share more on my Patreon page. So those of you who are with me there, thank you. And those of you who are thinking of tuning in, I'm still doing that for now. I don't know. I really don't know. I think if I had this 50-50, right? 36 years of constant work in which I gave all of me, all of my essence, all my hair practically. I just have a few hair left. I really would like to, for me, what I would like to experience is to go to different places of the world where they call me and do this spiral work, connecting the places, working with the directing of the elementals, working more with the elemental realm, because that's what's transiting. And if that's not taken care of, humanity doesn't have that new, organically contained, sustained system, which is not a system. It's just Gaia's natural template for living, designed for living. So that's what we're doing here. Our mission was quite complex. Even I don't physically know all of the elements. The angels have recently told me the best and the most profound is invisible to the eyes. But you've done it. So just trust yourself fully, completely. The same goes for you, whatever your work is, whatever you're doing. Feel the stages, feel the cycles. And if you feel ever to be a part of the mission team, the dream team, just kidding. But if you want to be part of what's still taking place, the work that I've sort of trailblazed into the embodiment of the cosmic Christ and the giver of life principle, that's on Patreon. But you will be able to purchase the Cosmic Christ course separately as well if you're not on Patreon, what you want to make available. I'll do a few videos because there's a few segments. I think I'm going to make them separately on Patreon. They're going to be coming out monthly, and they're all going to be recorded simultaneously, right? But if you purchase them separately, you will get all one package. And I'll include also the video I made on Patreon, which is called the Galactic Pulsar. Pulsar is incredible light technology that I've been trained into during one of my retreats when I was called to sleep outside. I was there for 4 days and 3 nights. Slept outside in my only sleeping bag, nothing else over me. Only the roof was the sky. And what's to say there? It was really interesting. It was really interesting. And that moment, that's when they trained me into that. So that will be included in the course. So if you want to learn more about that, the links will be shared down below when it's recorded. And go check out my page. For now, personal services are not there because it's just too much for me, what I'm going through, the levels that I'm being initiated into. But I'll see if that's still something. I'll know more in the fall. So if we don't fall by the fall. Anyway, thank you for being here. And those of you who've been, like I said, making connections or, coming on Instagram, commenting, thank you so much. I love all this beautiful family a lot. But I feel the most humbly accepted in my state of grace here in nature with my family. I always tell them, you're the world to me, you're everything to me, because literally they're everything I got. They're my munchkins. And I love them. I bring them gifts. They give me gifts in return for the work I do. And it's just a beautiful exchange, which humans still have to learn in most ways, how this unconditionally flows. But we recently also made a new connection with a new master being, Pleiadian master. And it was interesting because we were doing lots of studying in that level. And my mother was actually asking, "What's your name? Could you please tell us your name?" And he said, "Well, you can name me yourself." And she heard the words Lamayan. And it's interesting because the Mayans are little Pleiadians, right? Maya, star. So that was really interesting, I thought. And if you want to know more, I'll share on Patreon. And as always, I do updates there. A little on the downside in the summer, but yeah, it's happening. So thank you for being here, as always, with so much love, wisdom, and power. Don't forget also the Organic Ascension courses. There's a Trinity plus the fourth one for Cosmic Ray Mastery and Activation Process. This is also available on my page. And this one will probably be the last course I do this way in recorded format, because then I'm going to do other things. I don't yet know, but I'm willing to be surprised by life if I choose to stay here, surplusing myself. And let's see, it's an adventure. I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Welcome into my world, the world of the elven song, magical.